change the direction of our government. I shudder to think what the future will be. And I'm afraid that if we don't, in places like Oakland County and the 9th District, send a new voice, a conservative voice, a common sense voice to Washington, that you'll see Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and the rest of us stand up and say, look, this is what the American people want to bring in more of. And we can talk about the specifics, and we will, but we just passed something called financial services reform. What does that do? It basically puts the meat hooks of government even further into the private sector. It does very little to reform financial services when you don't address the problems created by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And it doesn't talk about it. The architects of this bill were Chris Dodd from Connecticut and Barney Frank from Massachusetts. I don't know if that's a good sign. But
just bad tape.
Yeah, bad tape, right. But the Wall Street Journal pointed out yesterday, that's like putting Tony Hayward, the chairman of the BP, in charge of the oil drilling legislation, you know, to put these two guys in charge. And I have talked with community bankers throughout this area, and they're very concerned because the requirements for their institutions have gone up, the number of regulators have gone up. They don't know whether to fish or cut bait, as we say. You know, they're in a very difficult position. Gary Peters was in the middle of this bill. This is the kind of thing that he thinks is what government should do, should institutionalize things like too big to fail. I take a very different approach. Yes, reforms are necessary. We could put some reforms into the system that would prevent sort of the bundling of a lot of these bad mortgages that started the whole house of cards to collapse last year. But to have this kind of quote-unquote reform seems to me to be another step very much in the wrong direction. And of course, the litany of issues are there, from healthcare, cap and trade, which is still out there. Now they call it something else. You know, they have a public relations team. As soon as they find that there's negative connotations to one label, they'll find a new label, but it will be the same bill. It's called Kerry Lieberman now, and it's basically the same thing working its way through the Senate. Talked a little bit about the budget or lack of budget. And then, of course, the main issue that we face here is putting people back to work. And the response of this administration, the response of this Congress, was to pass an $863 billion stimulus bill last year. So we got it fixed. Unemployment will go no higher than 8%. Everything's fine. Well, we've seen the results. You know, we've spent a good deal of that money, not all of it. But what's happened on unemployment? Well, here in Michigan, hit 15%, and now hovering pretty close to it. Nationally, we're at 10%. We're changing side.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Please, go ahead.
Because this happened to me recently. I turned down the position for interview. What is the minimum wage in the United States right now?
Oh my gosh, that's a very good question.
I tried to look up on the internet, and it fast like. And the reason why I'm asking this is I applied for what I thought is a customer service, which is my background. And I was all gung ho, and went through the preliminary interviews, yada, 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 yada. I was ready to go on the interview, and I said, we only pay $10 an hour. That equates over a little over $20,000 a year. I couldn't live on that, and you figure if they take out taxes, it's down to $15,000 a year. That's garbage. Yes, we do have those jobs, and yes, they do cover benefits, but how can you live on that kind of money?
Well, that's the whole thing. This is what we're told is the new normal. We have to accept a reduction in our standard of living, which is, frankly, baloney. If you want to know the truth, we have, particularly in Michigan, we've become accustomed because of our relationship with the automotive industry. We've been very fortunate over a long period of time to benefit from high wages and a very dynamic sector. And those days are changing. But by the same token, we've got to be able to provide tax incentives for employers to create good-paying jobs. And today we don't do that. You know, there's an old adage: when you tax something, you get less of it. When you subsidize something, you get more of it. And of course, we've been taxing investment, we've been taxing savings, and we're certainly taxing employment. And this is the problem that a lot of business people that I talk about is this uncertainty. You know, they don't know from one day to the next where the federal government is going to take things. What's going to be the cost associated with this health care program? They don't really know. What did Nancy Pelosi say? Well, we've got to pass the bill to see what's in it. I mean, tell that to the guy running a shop here on Rochester Road, you know, who's got to make payroll, as I understand. The same is true with this cap and trade bill, which of course hasn't passed but is moving out there. You see that virtually every aspect of your production or your business is going to increase because the cost of production increases dramatically, let alone the cost of additional energy on a per household basis. But as a business person, you're scared to death. And of course, our area is very reliant on a lot of energy. And so, you know, it's no wonder that very few employers are going to make significant commitments to hire you at a decent wage because, frankly, they don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I think that you're going to see a lot of employers wait until after this November election to get an understanding of where we're going to go. If we are successful in bringing new voices, new people, a new direction to government, I think you're going to see a change in regards to employment numbers. I think we're in a position to do things immediately on healthcare and others. But if we don't, we're in trouble.
Isn't healthcare supposed to, my understanding, come January, if Obama has it his way?
Well,
Healthcare is going to
I
be.
mean, the taxes are beginning already.
Yeah.
The benefits, quote unquote, of this bill don't start until 2014 for all intents and purposes. But what will happen with healthcare is there were about 150 new boards and commissions that were created in order to implement and oversee and regulate this new healthcare. If we do change the House of Representatives, change the Congress this year, what I want to do is to be a part of a process that uses the power of the purse to ensure that these new boards and commissions don't get off the ground. Ronald Reagan once said that the closest thing to eternal life is a government program. And so the best thing I think that we can do is to stop these programs, these boards from taking root in society until we get such time as we got a new president in January 20th of 2013. Because obviously Obama's not going to sign a bill that will change it. So the only thing we can do is to use our legislative capabilities to drill down into the appropriations process and prevent that from taking root.
Well, when will the new people be seated?
January 1st of 2011, which, by the way, is also the very same day. I think we ought to just give up on the sign there, Brian. Is also the same day that the capital gains tax is set to jump back to its old rate, paying about 25% there. And of course, the estate tax, which was eliminated, phased out in this decade, will go back up to 55%. So if you're on life support on December 31st, you know, you may want to think twice about it, because otherwise over half of your estate is going to go to the federal government from zero today. And you know, my gosh, you know, you've worked all your life, you pay taxes, all the income, the things that you've accumulated to pass down to your family. But now, because the Congress has failed to act, over half of that is going to go to Uncle Sam on January 1st, that arbitrary. So that's one of the first things that we have to do is, as a Congress. Now, what will the president do? We don't know. And so this is what we're into. But we need to restore the checks and balances that are established in Washington, if nothing else. I'd love to see us get to a point where we could override vetoes and things of that nature. If we're lucky, maybe we'll get there, but I don't count on it. So this is going to be very important.
My concern with